when I talk about creating an offer, building a back-end product, it could be something like a coaching program that's high ticket, or it could be you as a consultant or a done-for-you service, or it could be something that you're selling for, $1,500 or $2,000, like an online program, perhaps with some elements of you being involved. There are three parts to this model, okay? And I've taught this in the past, but I haven't talked about it in some time. But those three parts of this model are proposal, platform, and process, okay? Proposal is what you are selling, okay? And there are categories of what you are selling or what you can sell. And I'm going to go through those categories with you in just a minute. Platform is who it is that you're selling it to, okay? And where those people are. And I'm going to give you like a checklist, or at the very least, like some things that you really want to be aware of when you're considering who to sell your thing to. So again, proposal, platform, and then finally process. And the process is how you actually are going to get money, right? I know that uh, sounds a little base and a little simple, but there are multiple ways for someone to pay you. And we've got to figure out which one of those ways are going to work with whatever it is that you're selling, because some ways will work better than others. And in fact, some ways will work and others perhaps not at all with whatever it is that you're attempting to sell. And then lastly, so we're going to cover all of that proposal, platform, process. And then I'm going to give you some suggestions on, like, if you're just starting out with this and or building something brand new, I'm going to give you kind of like some things to consider on where to start with, like building out, say, a 30-day plan with that. Okay. Hopefully that sounds good. Let's dive right in. Let's first talk about proposal. It all starts with proposal, what it is that you're selling, right? Like in The Godfather, we want to make an offer that people can't refuse. The right people can't refuse. So here are the categories, and here are some examples of what those categories look like when it comes to you creating an offer that somebody can't refuse. You have done with you, which done with you is maybe something attached to your expertise. A done with you program might look like perhaps a LinkedIn growth program where you're an expert on LinkedIn. In the past, you used LinkedIn to attract clients or maybe get speaking engagements or whatever. And you're like, okay, I really know how to do this for myself. I can teach other people how to get clients on LinkedIn as well. You could even do that as a done for you service, but let's stick with done with you, which would be like a coaching program based on your expertise. So something like that might look like, an 8-week sprint where you're meeting with clients, you're helping them to create their post, you're critiquing their outreach scripts, and you're taking them all the way through, maybe having their first few telephone calls or their first few appointments, or maybe even landing a client on LinkedIn. And that is a done with you program that you could potentially sell for several thousands of dollars, because obviously if you can help somebody get a client on LinkedIn and that client is worth 5 or 10,000 or maybe much more to them, then of course this skill and learning that skill is going to be worth many thousands of dollars for you to teach that person. That's a done with you program. And it can be whatever your expertise is. I gave you one example, right? They learn from you and they're executing with your guidance. And this is done in a group, and all that's done at the same time. Number two is done for you. Bestseller Publishing is a service company, primarily a done for you business, ghostwriting, publishing your book, doing the design, doing the book launch itself, landing you on TV, radio, podcast, etc. Right? All you have to do as an author, is speak your content if you're using our ghostwriting services. All you have to do as somebody that is going to get on television is know your talking points and know how you should show up for the TV interview that our team landed for you, right? So this is a high ticket offer. This is somebody that says, I don't want to learn how to get on television. I don't want to bang the phones, make the calls, send the books, send the emails. I don't want to do any of that. I simply want to write a check and you get me that result. So that kind of offer is generally going to be a higher priced offer, of course, than a done with you offer. So that's premium positioning, and that's really minimal client time. So you are taking the burden onto yourself, and extra credit, kudos to you if you do that with some type of guarantee. We guarantee at Bestseller Publishing, we're going to land you at least 6 media appearances. That's 2 guaranteed TV and then 4 others. Now, I understand. I always say this to people. Yes, you want to get on Good Morning America. Yes, you believe that you're good enough for the Today Show. And I believe it too. But it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what I believe. It only is a matter of what the producers believe. Let's start first with Good Morning Tucson before we think we need to be on Good Morning America. So we're not talking about those elements of it, but it is still a premium position done for you. Those of you interested in doing that or doing it now, you know you're taking the burden and the responsibility on yourself to get a result for a client. So that is something that you're going to charge a premium and high price for, and you should. Okay. Number 3 example would be some type of consulting. And consulting is often thought of in like the corporate realm. So this might be you training a corporate sales team to use LinkedIn or to use social media for lead generation. Something like this might be retainer based. Many of our clients, and I've used the example of Resilience, Jennifer Egger's book, and this isn't her newest book. Her newest book actually came out a few months ago. But I've used her example. You know, she gets very large corporate contracts, 6-figure plus contracts, low volume of clients. It's obviously beneficial, but you need to also understand that the corporation that is writing you a 6-figure check is going to have very, very high expectations, and it will mean you working with teams, et cetera. Okay. But obviously a great gig. Number 4, some type of coaching. Coaching is more like maybe business to business or maybe B2C, business to consumer. That could be anything from, lose 20 pounds in 6 or 8 weeks to get your first 3 high ticket clients using my LinkedIn strategy. I'm using the LinkedIn theme kind of over and over again. You're going to coach them on doing it. Perhaps you're going to coach them on building their email list. Maybe you're going to have an entire program that you're taking them through over a period of 6 months, or maybe it's a full year. Maybe just the first 8 weeks, or they get their first 3 high ticket clients, and then it's moving into creating a scalable and systematic result, et cetera, right? Something like this could be a recurring revenue model where you're charging $1,500 a month, $2,500 a month, et cetera, for coaching. And they're going to be in the program and maybe even sign a 1-year agreement with you to stay in coaching. Coaching is fantastic. It can be B2B or B2C. And then number 5, and lastly, when it comes to kind of the categories of proposals, is moving, and this is maybe an anti-category, but the category is really like creating programs. It could be courses, but understanding that you never, never, never want to think in terms of charging by the hour. This is something that many of our clients do. Sometimes as attorneys, sometimes as psychotherapists or psychiatrists, they charge by the hour. And they think, well, if I could go from $75 an hour up to $150 an hour, that would be fantastic. No, that is not what you want to do. You really want to build out programs and packages that you're selling so that you don't have to charge by the hour. It's not about the number of hours that a person spends with you that you want to sell. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. It's far more valuable than what somebody's going to write a check for. And so what you need to figure out with a program or a course or something of the like is what is the major desire of my ideal client, and how can I give them that desire without promising a certain number of hours with me? Okay. This kind of thing, taking you away from 75 or even 300 or 400 or $500 an hour work and moving towards packages that you're selling or programs that you're selling will allow you to be scalable. It will allow you to build something that can grow. All right. Your book is going to give you these opportunities. But if your book brings to you opportunities and you sell it and package it incorrectly, then what good is that? You're going to burn yourself out and you're going to end up not making as much money as you could or as much of an impact on the world as you potentially could, because you're selling your time, and that is the most limited resource that you have in your life. Okay. So those are 5 categories, if you will, of proposals. Now, somebody might say, well, Rob, I don't see like, selling a $97 or $297 course. Well, you might be able to consider that in the final category programs, but I really want to get you out of the mindset of selling something for 3 digits and get you into the mindset of selling something that's 4 digits and higher, right? That is at least $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 and up. Because now you have the ability to make mistakes with the rest of your marketing and your attraction, and your mistake won't be fatal. Meaning that if you make a mistake selling a $97 or $197 course, and your paid advertising, it's costing you $500 to sell a $200 course, you're not going to be able to keep that up for very long. If you have higher margins, if you're selling something for 4 digits or 5 digits, then now you have the margin and you have the ability to make more of a mistake and errors while you figure out the marketing game, because it is a game and it does take some work to figure it out. Okay. So those are your 5 categories. Can you still have a course? Absolutely. Can you still have lower ticket things that you're selling? Yes. But if you're starting somewhere, start in one of these categories. All right. So after proposal, and while you're thinking about that, you also need to think about the platform and who it is that you're selling to. Really, really important, because who you're selling to will often determine whether or not they can afford a higher price package or a higher ticket offer in the first place. So I want to give you maybe a bit of a checklist, if you will, or things that you need to consider when it comes to who it is that you're selling your thing to. Okay. So number one, the first thing you need to ask, and I've already alluded to it, is do they have money? Does the audience that you want to sell to have money to buy your help and your services? If the answer is no, then right out of the gate, you need to say, well, this is not somebody that I can sell my programs to. Now, if you want to do good in the world, then by all means, you can do pro bono work and you can help people, and you should do that. But don't think that you're actually going to create a business by selling to people that are broke. I'd rather you sell to people that are wealthy or affluent, or at least have the great desire to spend their money on your services. And then you could use that money to do pro bono work or give to any charities that you want. But if you're building a business, you start first with considering who is the audience that has the money to pay me, period. Okay. So an example might be if you are serving a business community. People can say they have a business, and oftentimes it pays them even less than maybe a full-time job. So you might have some revenue examples or specifics of businesses that you're willing to work with. Okay. Do they have money? Number 2, do they have a bleeding neck? A bleeding neck. What does that mean? It means, is there urgency to solve their problem, right? A business losing sales because their ad account was banned, and they made all of their money from their marketing using their ad account. That is an urgent and very, very important situation that a business needs to solve, right? So you need to think in terms of, I want to solve a problem, or I want to position my solution to somebody's problem that is a bleeding neck problem. It is an urgent problem that people want to have fixed. Number three, and by the way, there are levels of this kind of urgency. For example, with bestseller publishing, is the idea of writing a book in and of itself a bleeding neck problem? Well, in one sense, no, but in another sense, yes. When I wrote my first book, I wrote my first book because I had a mentor tell me that writing a book was going to be the thing that really helped me to go to the next level in my business, coming off of a really, really traumatic and painful business failure during the financial crisis. I believed my mentor. He had nothing in it for himself. He wasn't charging me to do the book. I believed what he said. And so I realized if I'm going to get out of the mess that I'm in, I needed to write a book. And of course, the rest is history, as they say, because that was 16 years ago. So your solution to somebody's problem may not seem like the problem is a bleeding neck, but you need to find a way that is positioned as a bleeding neck, just like I shared with you about doing a book for somebody and BSP. Okay. Number three, does your audience buy into your solution or your premise? Okay. So, what do I mean by that? Well, if you are trying to sell keto or paleo to people that are convinced that a vegan or a vegetarian diet is the only healthy way that you can live your life, well, those are people that don't buy into your premise that, a carnivore diet or a paleo diet or a keto diet is going to be the diet for them. Now, the beautiful thing about that industry is that those people, have really separated themselves. And the vegetarian and vegan people are already convinced that that is the best way. And the paleo and keto and carnivore people are already completely convinced that low carb works. So you can simply add your solution or the way that map out how you can help them very simply because they already buy into your premise. So really think in terms of I want to find an audience that already ideally doesn't have to be educated on what my solution is. They already see your solution as a viable solution. Okay. Number four, simple, but are you dealing with the decision maker? Always deal with the decision maker. It's very hard if you're selling some type of corporate consulting program. It's very hard to get to the C-suite, right? It's very hard to get to the CEO or the CFO or the CEO of a corporation. But guess what? They're the decision makers. You can't sell your six-figure plus solution to the marketing assistant of the CEO, right? You have to do it directly to the CEO. So you need to make sure that what you do is reaching the decision maker. Okay, that's why we talk about, like in the case of you trying to get speaking engagements, we suggest you mail your book directly into the person that is in charge of the association or the person that's in charge of making whatever decision it is that you're trying to influence. You send the book directly to them. You follow up a call to the secretary or the gatekeeper of that person. But because they've already got the book, you have at least your foot in the door and you're able perhaps to have a few minutes of their time because of what you did. What are you doing? All you're trying to do is get to the decision maker. That's the person that you need to be speaking to. Okay. Number five, about this checklist of your platform and who you're selling to. Does this already fit into their plans? Does this fit somehow into their plans? Using the example of weight loss, we all know that when, late December hits, and certainly early January, that people are really beginning to think about their health, their fitness, finally losing those unwanted pounds, etc. I think about that with bestseller publishing because people are aspirational. They're thinking, this is the year I'm finally going to write that book, etc. I want to be in front of them at a time when my solution is fitting their plans. Now, that's not the only time I want to be in front of them. I want to be in front of them all the time. But if you can think in terms of, is this something they're already thinking about and it already fits in their plans, then fantastic. Number six, number six about your platform. Is it a blue ocean or is it a red ocean? A blue ocean or a red ocean? Very simple. You've probably read the book, and if not, heard of the book. But the idea is that a blue ocean is an ocean where your offer, your opportunity, isn't swimming amongst the red-blooded, hungry for blood sharks that have already been there since prehistoric times for 100 million years. They own the waterway. They are the chief apex predator in the waterway. Why compete in that kind of ocean? It's better for you to compete instead in an ocean that is blue, an ocean that is open and that is full of opportunity. And someone's going to say, well, how do you do that? There are no blue oceans. Of course there are. You can adjust things with your offer to specify it and niche it down to such a specific person that you stand out as a category of one. Now, how do you do that? Well, every offer is different in and of itself, but bestseller publishing, of course, serves coaches, consultants, experts, right? All different, fields and genres, doctors, dentists, chiropractors, lawyers, coaches, etc. If somebody wanted to compete, it might be difficult to compete with bestseller publishing because we've been around and we've spent millions of dollars on advertising. But if you wanted to compete, it might not be as difficult if you said, well, I'm only going to do books for, and the for was financial advisors that serve XYZ type of person. And you may say, gosh, well, that reduces the size of the market tremendously. Yes, it puts you in a category of one. Nobody else, more than likely, is competing for that specific person. And if you can become the go-to for that specific person, bam, fantastic. You're now in a blue ocean. You can own that kind of blue ocean. Number seven, and finally, is are these people, whoever you decide your platform is going to be, whoever you decide your person is going to be, are they easily found? Okay, that's important. On social media, female entrepreneurs or female life coaches, you can target on Facebook if you're going to do ads. But, people that want to quit their corporate job, that's not so easy to target. You know what I mean? Like, they're not announcing that. They don't want their corporation to know that they're thinking about quitting their corporate job. Those people are hidden. Those thoughts, they're hidden below the surface. They're harder to find, those people. Now, look, if you have a great way to find the right people that also is off the radar, then that's a great moat and a fence that you can build around your business. But if you're just starting, ideally, it's great if you can have a client that you can find, right? That you know how to find them, whether it's direct mail, whether it's radio advertising, whether it's going to networking groups, whatever it is, speaking engagements, et cetera, or of course, paid advertising. You want to make sure that you can find them easily. Okay. Those are 7 things that are a checklist of who it is that you should be targeting. By the way, if you're already selling something, you've already built your high ticket thing, your coaching, whatever, then I would take your avatar, your ideal client, and I would put it through this checklist and ask yourself, how many of these boxes does my avatar really check? And if it doesn't check enough, then you may really want to consider making an adjustment, maybe narrowing it down more, etc. Okay? So proposal, what it is you sell, gave you examples of that. Platform, who it is that you're selling to, gave you a checklist of those. Let's talk now about process and how to sell it. This is simpler, but it's still something that you need to be thinking of, and you also need to kind of embrace whatever your skills and desires are around this. So you have 3 different options on how you're going to sell something. You can sell one-to-one, which are consultative calls. By the way, you don't have to be the one that sells one-to-one. For the most part, I have David and Elaine, and at different times, I've had other people that are author development coaches that take the lion's share of the calls and the applications that come in to bestseller publishing. I almost never do any type of sales call or call consultative type call. The only time I do is if somebody has been directly referred to me, and then I will. So you don't have to be the one to take the call, but if you're selling something that's probably, I'd say 5,000 and above, and you might even make an argument of 3,000 and above, then you're going to have a call with that person, an hour-long Zoom, maybe multiple calls, etc. If you're selling anything certainly above 5,000 and more than likely above 3,000, you're going to need a call. Even when I do my workshops and our offer is 9,000 or 18,000, and I make that offer in a webinar to hundreds of people, as you know, especially if you came through one of those webinars, the first step is you put a deposit down and then you go to a call. Why? Because it's a much higher ticket item, and most people don't want to simply click a button without speaking to somebody and feeling a bit of reassurance that the guy on the interwebs that says he's in St. Augustine, Florida, actually is a real person and has a real business and can actually fulfill on what he has promised. The same thing is going to be for you. So if you're selling anything, certainly over 5 and probably even over 3, you're going to need to do some type of one-to-one call. Again, doesn't have to be you. Number 2, you can sell one-to-many. What are one-to-many? Well, I gave you an example of that a moment ago. A webinar is one-to-many. A challenge is one-to-many. A speaking engagement where you're actually selling from the stage. I'm not talking about a speaking engagement where you're paid and you're delivering content and teaching. That's not where somebody is handing you money, right? Other than for the actual speaking engagement. So a webinar or challenge, typically people will say that on a webinar or challenge, you're not going to have great success selling something for more than a couple $1,000s. And that's not entirely untrue, but like all rules, rules are meant to be broken. I just gave you an example of how we sell 18,000 and I've sold $25,000 programs to people on challenges and on webinars and workshops. They almost always have some type of call associated with them, a deposit, and then a call to finalize whatever that program and offer is. A true one-to-many, though, is where people are literally clicking the button and paying. I do that almost every week when I sell Manny for $1,497. I teach, I try to serve, I try to give in the allotted time I have, and then I make as powerful, as enticing an offer as possible. And I say, here are your options. Click a button, fill in the information, and you'll get what I've promised. So one-to-many is great, but typically speaking, if you're selling something for more than $2,000, you're not going to be able to do that without a one-on-one call. And then last but not least is one-to-infinity. And one-to-infinity is a more automated process like what we do every single day with our book funnels. So I run book funnels for Publish Promote Profit. I run a book funnel for Book Funnel Secret is starting tomorrow. I run a book funnel for Write with AI. I have several other low ticket funnels, meaning that I spend money on paid advertising. Somebody is enticed by my ad. They click the ad, they read it, they decide to put their credit card information in, and they buy the book for $7.95 or whatever. And then they're given several other options to increase that sale. Would you like the audio version of the book? Would you like my Kickstarter program? Would you like A, B, C, D? And something like that, you can probably comfortably sell up to maybe uncomfortably $1,000 via automated, but you've got to do a fantastic job. And more than likely, it's going to be a video sales letter of some kind that somebody would have to watch and consume for maybe as long as 15 or 20 minutes in that funnel before they're ready to make like $1,000 purchase. In most cases, though, you can go, $7.95 up to $297 pretty easily, all automated. Okay. The magic there in the automation, of course, is you have to spend less money than you're making, right? And that's very, very difficult to do just with the automation itself. Usually for us, we lose money on the front end, but we acquire a customer. Then we can see if that customer has any other needs, and a percentage of those customers are going to ascend to some of our done for you services. So again, having that high ticket offer, excuse me, gives like a lot of forgiveness in a lot of other areas. That margin helps you to be successful in other areas. Okay. So those are your three options when it comes to process. When it comes to taking money from somebody, which you must do for your business, you're going to do it one to one, you're going to do it one to many on a webinar, or you're going to do it one to infinity in some type of automated process. Okay. So obviously, we've talked a great length about proposal. I gave you the categories of your proposal. We've talked about platform and the things that you absolutely must like check these boxes. Please, if you hear nothing else of this, platform is and who you're selling to is perhaps the most important part of this. And then the process of how you're actually going to make money and make a sale. Now, if I were you, where would I be starting? And in fact, I am you because I'm always creating new offers and I'm always thinking about what the next thing is for bestseller publishing. So where do I start? Where should you start in thinking about all these things? Well, obviously, everything that I've given you thus far, you have to consider when it comes to your offer. But here are some overarching values, if you will. Number one is you want to consider the economics of your offer first and foremost. All businesses are about math. That's all this is. You are an investor if you have a business. That's what you are. You are an investor. And when you're using fill in the blank, paid advertising or speaking engagements, or you're doing organic content, or you're trying to build an email list, whatever you're doing, you are investing money, time, energy into that with the expectation and the hope that you are going to get a return on your investment that is higher than the amount that you invested. If the economics of your offer are wrong to begin with, then you have a really big problem. And this is why I talk so much about, look, your book is just the beginning of the story. It's not the end of the story. It's not, you didn't do all this work and invest and spend your time and energy just to hope to make $8 on the sale of a book. Yes, great. When somebody buys it and that $8 hits your account on Amazon, fantastic. But the economics aren't right for that to be your entire business. So you need to either A, have dozens and dozens and dozens of these little soldier books out there working for you and fighting for you, earning you money, or you need to have one or two or three right books that bring people back to your main offer that makes all the economics of your life work, right? That's what you need to be thinking of. Economics. Your business is a math problem. You must solve the math problem. Number two, in creating something, and I didn't do this as much when I was younger, but I certainly do it very well now, is you want to consider your talents, your resources, and your desire. Like, what do you want? Do you hate one-to-one calls? Like if somebody said, I will pay you $100,000 a year, but I want to speak to you, 8 times a week. And you do the math, you go, wow, okay, that 100 grand, that's great. Well, then let's extrapolate that out. So if they're speaking to you 8 times a week, that's 8 hours a week. You can take 5 of those clients, right? So now you're making $500,000, 5 clients times 8 hours is 40 hours a week. You're now on the phone with those 5 people. Is that the life that you want? Is that what you desire? And if it's not, then stop doing that. Then don't go in that direction. Now I have other clients and friends that love the one-on-one. They love it. And they charge very high fees commensurate with their abilities. I mean, multiple six figures for one-on-one coaching. And they don't do set calls every week. They basically open themselves up to whenever you have a need. And that might only be two or three times in a given month. If you love that, then build your life around that. Do your talents and resources, do what you're good at, really shine in that kind of model. And if not, then don't build the wrong model. You might want to build group programs, or if you hate tech, then you may want to stay away from it. If you do love tech, if you love AI, then you want to figure out how you can go in heavy on the things that you love. Number three, if you're just getting started, you need case studies. You need people that you actually can help and you're showing that what you do and what your magic is works. That's good for you. And it's also good for the marketplace because you'll help them to change their life in exchange for testimonials and like the data, the actual results that they got. So anything that you're starting, start it with a few people for free. Give it to them, help them, make them successful in exchange for nothing more than a testimony, than, the data that you're getting back for actually helping them. And fourth and finally, and then we'll open it up for some questions, is I think too many people look at like other people's end result and get discouraged and feel like, oh, I should be so much further along. That will destroy any progress that you could potentially make. You don't need to worry about where my business is or where somebody else's business is in BSP. You just need to stop trying to be perfect or stop trying to be somebody else and start making progress on your thing. Okay? When people come on my webinars and workshops, and you know this if you've ever been on, I always ask them, how long have you been wanting to write a book? And invariably, there are people on that have been wanting to write a book for 40 years, 50 years. I had somebody last week that said 70 years. Now, I don't know how old they are, but come on. Look, I know writing a book is hard, but I'm a C student in English and I got a bunch of bestsellers. Like you can do it. Don't worry about being the guy or the gal that writes the next War and Peace. Just get off zero. Like start moving, start making progress. And I know I don't need to say that to you because you're authors and you're doing that, but maybe when it comes to creating a great offer, you've been stuck because you just are looking at what somebody else is doing and you're not just trying to make progress on your own. Make progress yourself, take steps forward, and in a few weeks, a month, 2 months, it'll be amazing how far you've come. Okay?